You will become strong, principled, and happy. And now you are taking an exam to become like that. You should perceive this world like this. You need to pass this exam.
Hello, Dr. Torsunov. I want to thank you. You saved me a couple of years ago.
Maybe you will save me now, who knows? Your questions are also an exam for me, not just for you.
Let me remind you of the situation. 2 years ago, my wife left me. She got involved with a bad company, and you advised to change this company. These people were drug users.
Well, yes, you should isolate her.
I isolated her. Everything is fine.
Excellent. Well done, great. You isolated her, that's right. Is your wife with you or not? No?
Well, she left and that's it. I asked how much longer I should be alone. Can I have a family now? You said, wait until September.
Now you can have a new family. You can. I see it's possible. Everything is excellent with you. You've cleansed yourself. You feel that your heart is calm regarding her, don't you? This calmness is the sign that it's time to move on in life.
Yes, we communicate with each other.
What do you talk about?
We have children. We have 4 children. There's plenty to talk about.
Do the children live with you?
No, I live in another city.
Does she live on your money?
Mostly.
It's a complicated situation. How does she treat you?
Differently. There are periods when she communicates well. Then it's the opposite.
She has a very weak intelligence.
My job is such that I won't be able to give them enough attention.
You will. If she's not worthy of being a mother, you need to take them. And if she's worthy, let her take care of the children, and you should help her. That's all. She just has a weak intelligence. She's impulsive. That means she has no stability in life.
If God gives me a woman now, won't that be seen as me not being able to stand it and quit?
No. This is a serious question, and it concerns you individually according to your fate. You won't be able to endure this fate. In other words, you don't have the strength to restore the family. The reason is her foolishness. She's a very damaged person in relationships, and it's very difficult for her to understand how to behave correctly. She is a woman prone to loneliness. She's lonely and independent.
Dependent?
Independent.
Independent?
Yes, she is independent. Yes, you need to get married. You're already at a point where you can't live alone. You'll simply go crazy. This is your fate. This is not about a woman. This is your fate in front of you, your destiny. Yes, it's not even from the past life, but from the life before that. You've been answering for your actions for 2 lives already. This is just how fate works. Your fate is very strict towards you, a strict fate, but you should accept it and everything will be fine. You've almost accepted it. Almost. Sir, what's your question?
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Torsunov, I want to thank you for your work.
Thank you for that. You're an intelligent and very profound person, and you listen to the lectures. It's difficult to listen to someone when you're intelligent yourself.
I have a question about degrading behavior. I'm in a relationship. I met a woman a year ago. I've experienced global changes. I've found God anew. I've changed very much. I realize that I've sinned a lot in my life regarding women. I exploited female nature a lot, for which I paid the price, you see. But I have this situation. I understand that with this woman I'm fully experiencing the consequences of my karma, but I also understand that this is a very big challenge for me. I accepted that at one time and began to rediscover myself, but I have this problem. I kind of understand that I'm reacting incorrectly to the degrading behavior of my woman. I practically don't react at all to my woman's behavior. I understand that I'm showing weakness.
Not reacting to a woman's behavior is not weakness, it's a sign of mental strength. When a woman behaves incorrectly and a man doesn't react, stays calm, it's a sign of strength and intelligence, not weakness. But if he reacts to her behavior, that's already a sign of weakness.
Well, I understand that she commits ignorant actions, including for herself. I understand that I should take care of her.
But how will you care if she rejects this care? It's impossible. To care, the other person has to accept it. You feel responsible for her.
Well, yes, I'm purposefully...
But she doesn't accept your responsibility.
What should I do?
Observe, you need to understand that often dependency hinders helping a person. She, like any woman, when she sees that a man is strongly dependent on her, she stops evaluating him correctly. She perceives him as a weak person, although this is an illusion. When a man loves, if he's intelligent, this love also includes care and protection of the woman. But it's more important here to show both your strength and independence in a good sense. That you remain self-sufficient both with her and without her. For this you need to learn to build a relationship with God, not with a person. And then she will appreciate you. The main problem now is that she doesn't appreciate you. That's why there are problems. And since she doesn't appreciate you, she doesn't need your care. But on the other hand, as I feel a thread, a connection between you, she still uses your care to some extent.
It happens that she thanks me.
She appreciates your presence, but at the same time doesn't respect you because you lost yourself in your relationship with her. A man who loses himself in a relationship with a woman cannot be with her because these are God's laws. A man should be stronger than his attachment to a woman. He should be more attached to God, and then it's already pure goodness. But when the attachment to a woman is stronger, it's passion. It means that a close relationship is not possible. Close relationships are not always in pure goodness. Pure goodness means that you help a person, but you're not dependent on them. You don't become dependent. But if you become dependent, she won't appreciate it.
I've already understood this, yes. I'm working on it right now. I can really feel my strength growing.
That's it, your strength is growing and her respect will grow too.
Regarding her degrading actions, should I not react to her actions?
There are different actions. If it's cheating on you and you have a close relationship, then you need to distance yourself. What are actions in degradation? If it's betrayal, cheating, it always means that distance is necessary. If you're permissive, firstly, you lose yourself. Secondly, you lose her anyway. That means you should never allow a close person to commit betrayal.
For example, she can say, "This man is my friend." She sits with him hugging until 3 a.m., opening her heart to him.
She's very uneducated in terms of relationships between a man and a woman, and that's the problem. This is the topic of today's lecture. If we allow ourselves to have close relationships, very deep relationships with a person who is in passion or degradation, suffering follows. We can fulfill our duty, we can take care. But if we want to have a sincere and close relationship with a person who doesn't understand what faithfulness is, then there can be no sincere relationship. This means degradation. You need to understand that you're overestimating this person. She has many good, very pure qualities, but at the same time, she's very foolish in other matters where you are strong. But in order to educate her in this, she must be subordinate to you. But a woman who has a tendency to be friends with many men, in principle, cannot be subordinate to anyone, because this woman is not in pure goodness. Her intelligence is very weak. A woman's intelligence is strengthened as a result of her subordinating herself to one man. If a woman doesn't subordinate herself to one man, her intelligence cannot be strong. She is very weak, because a woman's nature is attachment. A woman always lives by attachment. But if a woman becomes attached to many men at once, she cannot be stable in life and cannot have strong intelligence. And you're confusing intelligence with mind. That means she has a pure mind, she sees the world very purely and brightly, but this is not intelligence. This is just perception of the world. This is devoutness accumulated from the past. But intelligence means correct behavior.
On the other hand, I just took responsibility for her.
You can only take full responsibility for a person who behaves decently. If a person behaves in a degrading way, this responsibility is destructive. Imagine, let's say, you took responsibility for a person who wants to kill someone. What's the result? You will degrade because they fulfill their desires and you can't do anything about it. So think about whether you should take responsibility for her. That's the question.
But can I at least express myself, my character, to show that she's behaving in a degrading way? To show strictness?
If she wants to. But a man is not an unconditionally dominating factor in relationships with a woman. Everything depends on her desire. I never impose my instructions even on my wife, who has always been faithful to me all her life. I never impose because I know that she may accept my instructions, or she may not. Her acceptance and non-acceptance show a woman's capabilities. Her capabilities are very weak in relation to you. She is very much committed to her desires to live her own life, and she is attached to the happiness she wants to experience very much, and happiness that she wants to experience is far from virtuousness. That's the problem, so it's simply impossible to control such a woman.
I have a question about help.
Help means control. That means you can't help her in any other way. You can help a woman by explaining something to her, advising her, but only if she wants to listen to you. This woman doesn't want to listen to you, she only wants to use you, and that's all. She depends on you. She's dependent on your generosity, but not on your intelligence. This is a cunning position. I think very soon you will set boundaries, put the question point blank in your relationship with this person. And I don't think she will choose you in this situation.
I'm ready for any development of the situation.
This person doesn't represent a good fate in your life, but an evil one. Evil fate sometimes has a sweet taste, and it will lead you to another wife who is very intelligent and kind. When you develop spiritually, your fate will give you another person. This is my conclusion from all these conversations I'm having with you now. I look at your fate and see that this person is not worthy to be your wife. Although it's very difficult for you to accept this now.
Thank you.
Ask, you're smiling so nicely.
A year ago, our family faced infidelity. It was very difficult. We didn't have knowledge.
Infidelity in a family always means only one thing, remember? An incorrect way of life. It means the family is not moving towards God, but towards material prosperity. The desire to develop materially at the expense of spiritual development always leads to the same result. The result is called the destruction of family values. Because people become very tired mentally from this internal desire for prosperity. This fatigue leads to a strong desire to change one's life, and people think changing life means changing the person. They don't understand that it's necessary to change the entire understanding of what life is.
There was no knowledge, so there was humiliation and fear of loss. We have 3 children after all. An understanding of what to do was also lacking. In April, a friend of mine introduced me to your lectures, and everything changed in a few days. I was able to distance myself. I asked him to leave. He left, and on that very same day he broke up with her, right on that very day.
Distance doesn't mean divorce, right?
Yes.
Well done, you did the right thing.
At the same time, all this happened without the tantrums that were there before. Now I'm a bit unsure how to behave with him.
Kindly?
I behave kindly. For 3 months, the children were with their grandparents. Well, he still comes. He doesn't want to give back the keys.
But is he living with her or with you?
No. He lives in the neighboring building, renting a small room.
Maybe it's time to let him come back home?
No. You see, I let him come home. He comes to us every evening, puts the children to bed, brings us money, gifts. But at the same time, when I ask some questions, he can say nasty things again. About how everything is over, or something like that. And the next day, at 7 in the morning, he's already there to take the children to kindergarten.
You need to understand the principle. You see, you were living incorrectly. This sin has accumulated, the desire for material things. Not the desire for God, but the desire for material things, because pure love cannot live in impurity. This impurity is now preventing the pure from living. You just need prayer and patience. The person is near you, but his action prevents him from being close to you. It means his action is destroying him from within because he is a good person by nature. And his action doesn't align with his current attitude towards you.
Just how, in what way?
You should pray.
I pray I fully accept him.
And wait. If you want to know the sequence, I'll tell you. At the moment when the heaviness in your heart towards this person passes. Now you feel like there's a burden. You're taking action. Since you are a reasonable person, you carry out your actions despite this burden. You act out of a sense of duty towards him. Because by your nature, you would have wanted to break up with this person forever in this situation. You would have wanted to because...
He acted very cruelly.
Yes, this means you would like to do that, but you don't. This means that you are overcoming fate. You're stronger than it now, and you need to make it so that your fate calms down through prayer, gradually. You need to calm down in your heart. When you feel calmness, he will start to feel remorse, and he will come back.
Should I not take any actions myself, as you say?
Take action, say, come back, live with us. Say such things, but also you should keep a very firm distance from him. You can't get too close to him, you'll destroy yourself. The topic of today's lecture.
I explained to him, for example, I accept your flaws, but I don't accept your unworthy behavior.
Yes, that's fine.
And he just freezes then, looks at me, stays silent, and says, well, then I'm leaving.
There's one problem. You don't know that when you, let's say, try to educate a man, you need to do it in a certain way so that he doesn't say, I'm leaving. If you say something to a man, you need to say it as if you're younger speaking to an elder. I accept your flaws, but I don't accept your behavior, my dear. then he won't say, "I'm leaving." But if you do this firmly, like a mother, like a mentor, then he doesn't know what to do with it, because he should control the situation. He should be the elder. He should take responsibility. But if he can't do this with you, because you are more elevated, more reasonable, and stronger than him, then he leaves. You simply don't know how to behave with a man. That's the problem.
Well, I think I'm just emotional.
All women are emotional. You just can't handle the relationship right now. If you could handle it, you would speak calmly. And I'm telling you, I'll repeat it once again, that if you want to build a relationship with someone, first achieve calmness in your heart through prayer. This calmness will give you the ability to speak correctly. And then the person doesn't leave. But if you can't overcome fate and start building a close relationship with a person, then it leads to destruction, because you can't abstain. He can't hold on, so a close relationship isn't impossible right now. You just need to fulfill your duty with him and behave kindly on the outside. But if he tries to talk to you more closely, you need to understand that it's premature and try to somehow lead this conversation to a smooth, kind outcome. You want to resolve the situation faster, you're trying to resolve it through conversation. It's impossible.
So this is going to take a long time? Half a year? A year?
Half a year.
Here's another small question about this woman.
She's unhappy, lonely.
Yes, but she, so to speak, also got on my nerves. She's putting a lot of pressure, saying that I'm ruining her life, and things like that.
Are you ruining her life?
No.
Don't pay attention. How are you ruining her life? She put on your fur coat and now you're ruining her life.
I think she was preparing my children for separation. That's why she was treating me so carefully.
Don't pay attention. She's just insane. She pretends to be smart, but in reality, she's foolish. Don't pay attention. This woman should not exist in your life.
I sincerely wish her happiness. Really. I even changed some kind of prayer. I remember I used to come and say, well, I have children. What should I do? Now I have such forgiveness. I even feel sorry for her to some extent.
That's the wrong attitude.
Then how?
A firm, tough style.
If she calls me again, should I just speak rudely to her?
Not rudely, but firmly. You should say, "My dear, understand that we are a family, and you're intruding into it, so you shouldn't call here, knock, or want anything. You are nobody here, and your name here is nothing. If you had built a correct relationship with our family, you'd be welcome, but you've intruded into the intimate, so there's only one place for you, and that's zero, a zero place in our life."
Thank you very much.
My dears, pure goodness, passion, and degradation don't mean. Goodness doesn't mean la la la, all is well. There are different kinds of pure goodness. As one song says, "When I see broken wings, there is no pity in me." That's right. We need to help, but pity is the wrong feeling. Broken wings need to be restored, but pity means indulging broken wings, indulging. That's the answer to your question. Because a person always suffers from lack of knowledge, not from what they did, but from lack of knowledge. You simply don't know what to do. It was a risk for me from a business point of view to give this lecture. The topic is somewhat unclear. Pure goodness, passion, and degradation, and how to behave. What is it all about? The right people came, because there are people who want to delve deeper into life, not just how to behave towards a loved one so that they don't leave. We are talking about serious matters now, serious lectures. This world is divided into 3 layers. Knowledge of all these 3 layers and precisely right behavior leads a person to happiness. A person becomes happy because they know exactly how to behave in different situations. To know this, you need to understand what these 3 layers are and what they are for. The layer of pure goodness is people who have the correct idea of happiness. That means the correct concept of life, meaning the inner attitude. Such people are in pure goodness. They understand that happiness will come when I think less about myself and more about others, when my life goal will be self-improvement and God, and when I will follow all the commandments of the scriptures in my tradition. A life in pure goodness means that a person doesn't attach too much importance to the life that's happening here, unlike everyone else. They view life in a longer perspective. This is what pure goodness means. A person lives very much for the future, not in terms of their economic status, but in terms of their fate. Because when a person passes away, they can't take with them money, power, or social status. They take with them only their actions and knowledge. Actions will determine in what conditions they will live, and knowledge will give them the ability to live. In fact, the most important thing in life is knowledge. If a person has knowledge in their heart, it is not destructible by time. In this life and in the next life, the knowledge remains with the person. Sometimes it takes several lives to remember what you knew. Sometimes a person commits a bad deed and loses knowledge for several lives. Then they remember it all through the heart. You say, I started listening to lectures and understood everything in a few days. This knowledge, your knowledge has returned. It's impossible to understand everything in a few days. That means a person accumulates knowledge over lifetimes. This is a complex thing. But when it comes, when a person has figured everything out, they are happy. They know exactly how they should live. But you also need to know that most people on this earth don't have knowledge of how to live. They live by trends. So they live as everyone lives, they think as everyone thinks, and whatever the general tendency is, that's what they consider right. This is called life in passion. People mostly survive in this world. If you take most people, what are they doing? What is their concept of happiness? I want to be happy. This means that I want my children, my family, and my country to be happy. Thinking about one's country, that's in the best case. Mostly everyone is limited to I and mine, and for it to include my country, it's already more expanded. It's already difficult. Also thinking my faith. This is also selfish, but already broader. My faith, my spiritual tradition. And there are people who have completely stepped over the conception of mine, and they live for the benefit of other people. They better understand who God is in this case, but at the same time, nothing is rejected. They have their faith, but at the same time, they're not against someone else's faith. If I divide, it means there is selfishness present. The passionate concept of life is more or less present in all people on earth. I need to breathe. If someone tries to take away my air now, I will behave passionately. Or if someone comes and tries to destroy me, I will defend myself. This is not pure goodness. Pure goodness means knowledge, kindness. Self-defense or firm behavior itself is not fully passion. It's an element of passion in life. Every person should earn a living. They should support their family, be successful, be influential. This is necessary in life. If a person considers this to be the most important thing in life, then they destroy the very principle of life. The very purpose of life is violated. It's like, do we live to eat or do we eat to live? Passion means that we live to eat. A person becomes fixated on their needs. For them, mortgage, apartment, prosperity, social status, all of it becomes the main thing in life. And if all this becomes the main thing in life, then the idea of fear or self-survival becomes the main one. Is there love in fear? If a person is surviving, this is the most important thing for them. Neither selflessness, nor generosity, nor kindness, nor self-sacrifice, but self-survival becomes the main thing. This is the concept of passion. And is there love in self-survival? No, that's why families break up. People have worked themselves to the bone together, but happiness is becoming less and less. And then what? A man perceives a woman as happiness. He doesn't understand that happiness means God, holiness, purity. These are higher concepts. One needs to reach them. For an ordinary man, happiness is a woman. For a woman, happiness is a man. For an ordinary man, if things are bad with this woman, he's exhausted. He thinks, I need happiness, I can't live without happiness, so I need another woman. But at the same time, if a person is faithful, then an element of pure goodness is present. Faithfulness is no longer a passion. Faithfulness is selflessness. This means there's a chance. A person's concept of life in pure goodness is when they are enlightened by knowledge. The passionate concept of life, they live like everyone else. The concept of life in degradation, I want to be happy and I don't care if everyone else around me will be happy or not. All these different concepts lead a person in different directions. The concept of degradation leads to degradation, to hell. The passionate concept keeps a person in this world of fussy people who are always running somewhere, always wanting something. The concept of pure goodness leads a person to heaven, then higher and higher. It takes them away from material existence to a bright world where there is no birth, old age, death. For many, these are just fantasies, but I'm not fantasizing now. I'm telling you very serious things that you are either ready to understand or not. The purpose of human life is not to raise children, but to go into spiritual reality where there is no suffering and no death. This is the highest meaning of human life. If you analyze life itself, how a person lives, you can see that when a person takes steps in this direction, everything becomes better in their life. And when they take steps in the other direction, everything becomes worse, but in the long run. Now, before we discuss how to relate to people in pure goodness, passion, and degradation, I would like to do something else. I'd like to make a comparative analysis, so the connection of these forces of pure goodness, passion, and degradation with different things in our life. The psyche of a person in pure goodness is balanced. A passionate person's psyche is tense because they have many attachments. They feel tense because they can't be happy without certain conditions. For example, they think, if I don't have a decent apartment, I'll wait until I do. This creates tension. If I don't have a job, I'll wait until I get one, and so on. A person in the mode of passion is always waiting for something. That's why they feel tense. A person in degradation has a disturbed psyche because degradation means a protest against this world in general. A person is either depressed or drinks or uses drugs or cheats. They have rebelled against the laws of this world. They're revolting. They can't have a normal psyche and can't be in harmony with the people around them. This is characteristic of a person in degradation. The average sleep requirement for a person in pure goodness is 7 hours. People in a state of passion, as they are mentally overtensed, need to sleep more, around 8 to 9 hours. Those in degradation need even more, over 9 hours, 9, 10, or 11. Their need for sleep is high. A person in pure goodness maintains good control over their senses. For someone in passion, it's unstable. Sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's bad. For those in degradation, it's weak. A person in pure goodness speaks calmly and peacefully. A person in passion speaks tensely. A person in degradation may speak either harshly or with a gloomy and depressed tone. Internal and external purity is high for a person in pure goodness. For a person in passion, it's varied. They're dirty inside but appear clean outside. A person in degradation has no purity at all. They're simply dirty in all respects. The workability of a person in pure goodness is motivated by their love for work and people, and therefore it's high. For a person in passion, it's motivated by necessity. Their workability can be quite high, but it wears them out. They get exhausted because they're motivated not by happiness, but by fear. Those who are motivated by fear always get exhausted. For those in degradation, workability is always low because it's impossible to be fulfilled in conflict. If a person is constantly at war with everyone, how can they have workability? They don't get fulfilled. Strong emotions such as anger rarely occur in those in pure goodness. For a person in passion, they occur during difficult periods of life. For a person in degradation, they're constant. Material desires are weak in a person in pure goodness, while spiritual desires are strong. People in passion have strong material desires but weak spiritual ones. You see, a person in passion also has spiritual desires, but they're weak. A person in degradation lacks spiritual desires. They have no spiritual desires at all. They have very strong, unrestrained material desires. How does self-esteem work in a person in pure goodness? They exhibit modesty towards themselves and respect for others. For those in passion, self-esteem means strong self-respect and ostentatious respect for others. A person pretends to respect everyone, but in reality they don't. People in degradation have a strong respect for themselves and open disrespect for others. That's it. They don't hide anything in this regard. We're simply recognizing each other now. The main time of day for a person in pure goodness is morning. For a person in passion, it's daytime. For a person in degradation, it's evening and night. Accordingly, take note of who goes out in the evening, who goes out during the day, and who goes out in the morning. People in pure goodness ascend to higher planets. Those in passion remain here on the middle ones. Those in degradation descend to the lower ones. Cardinal directions. East represents pure goodness, north and south passion, and west degradation. Terrain. The flat surface is passion, the lowland is degradation, and mountains and forests are pure goodness. In terms of community, a temple-based community reflects pure goodness. Urban areas, passion, and rural areas without a temple, degradation. In terms of structures, temples symbolize pure goodness, markets represent passion, and brothels signify degradation. Even animals are under the influence of these forces. Cows represent pure goodness, horse, passion, and camel, degradation. Among birds, swans are pure goodness, pigeons, passion, and crows, degradation. Among fish, dolphins are of pure goodness, sturgeon, passion, and piranha, degradation. Among insects, crickets are of pure goodness, ants, passion, and cockroaches, degradation. Flying insects, bees are of pure goodness, butterflies are of passion, and flies and mosquitoes are of degradation. You see, these forces divide the whole world. It's not just about people. Colors, insects, birds, plants, everything. Among plants, bananas represent pure goodness, peppers, passion, and garlic and hemp, degradation. Among water plants, the lotus signifies pure goodness, seaweed, passion, and duckweed, degradation. Among bacteria, lactic acid bacteria are of pure goodness, Escherichia coli, passion, dysentery bacillus, degradation. Peacefulness is pure goodness, anxiety is passion, and unrestrained behavior is degradation. Love, sublime love directed towards close ones, people around, all living beings, and God, is characteristic of people in pure goodness. For people in passion, love is self-centered, directed towards close relationships, their nation, their faith, and everything else that's their own. It's self-interested love. For people in degradation, love is directed solely at oneself. In criticism, people in pure goodness are self-critical. Those in passion criticize all others who differ from them. Those in degradation criticize everyone but themselves. Money is used altruistically by those in pure goodness. Money is for good purposes for the benefit of all, including people in pure goodness. For those in passion, money is for self-benefit, but without harming others. For those in degradation, money is for self-benefit and to others' detriment. Contentment is constant for those in pure goodness, unstable for those in passion, and rare for those in degradation. People in pure goodness forgive easily. Those in passion forgive with effort, and those in degradation cannot forgive at all. Attention span in pure goodness is strong on positive and spiritual matters, and weak on negative ones. People in passion focus on their material goals. They have a weak concentration on positive things and medium on negative ones. People in degradation have a strong concentration on negative things and a very weak one on what is positive. Memory in pure goodness is strong for positive things. Those in passion have a good memory for negative things. Hence, who is all the negative news for? For people in passion who are on earth. That's 90%. Mostly everything revolves around passion on earth. A person in pure goodness aligns truthfulness with sacred texts. The sense of truth in a person in pure goodness is not my truth, but how God decides. A person in passion believes in my truth. They feel the truth themselves. It's not the scriptures that tell the truth, but what I consider to be true, I know the truth myself. People in degradation have no sense of truth at all. They only have benefits. Personal gain is their truth. Creative potential is very high in people in pure goodness. It is inconsistent for those in passion and low for those in degradation. Engagement with spiritual literature is very high in those in pure goodness, non-serious and ritualistic for those in passion, and non-existent for those in degradation. They don't engage with spiritual literature at all. People in pure goodness read sacred texts. Those in passion read fiction, and those in degradation read detective stories and thrillers, and so on. Those in pure goodness always follow a daily routine. Those in passion sometimes do, and those in degradation never do. The diet of people in pure goodness consists of vegetarian foods prepared in accordance with rules of purity and health, and is blessed with prayers. People in passion mostly consume popular foods that are excessively sweet, astringent, bitter, sour, and salty in taste, with high amounts of meat and fish. For people in degradation, meat and fish are the main food. Their food is very fatty, overcooked, and carries evil qualities. People in pure goodness have no intoxications. Those in passion indulge in smoking, coffee, and tea. Those in degradation use alcohol and drugs. The intelligence of those in pure goodness is strong and clean. For those in passion, it's strong but dirty. And for those in degradation, it's weak and befouled. Are you tired? I'm just explaining the difference to you. Passionate people believe in God, but they believe in God to get something from Him. People in pure goodness believe in God for self-improvement. People in degradation believe in ghosts, spirits, evil forces, and evil conspiracies. Like Masons, Jews, and world elites controlling the world, people in degradation don't understand that God controls the world. Yesterday, in Tel Aviv, when I was giving a lecture, 3 people immediately fell into the same trap, believing that someone had jinxed them. This is called belief in degradation. A person can engage in spiritual practice, work on themselves, and listen to lectures. Faith is twofold. There's a faith a person cultivates, and there's a deeper faith inside. A person always has 2 types of faith, and the faith they cultivate will gradually take over. Until then, the faith that sits deep inside is dominant. If someone told you that you've been jinxed, and you live with this belief, if you now see that it's true, it is called believing in degradation. Belief in degradation connects a person with evil forces and spirits and makes them live as they were told. This belief leads them to this result. Remember, passionate people believe in success. People in pure goodness believe in knowledge, pure life, and God. People in degradation believe in negativity and evil forces. Now, my dear friends, let me tell you why I started this lecture in the first place. I want to tell you one thing that you should understand very deeply. It's the most important thing I want to say today. These three forces influence our consciousness so strongly that it's impossible to change it instantly. It takes years for a person to move from the influence of one force to another. In fact, these three forces are three ways to walk the path of fate. A person can drive, walk, or crawl through their fate. If they can easily drive a car through their fate, it means they live in pure goodness. They are driving a car through their fate and overcoming their fate very quickly. This doesn't mean that a passionate person can do the same. There are many connections and many things that hold a person back and don't allow them to transition into pure goodness. A lot is also holding back a person in degradation. The most important thing that holds a person back in life is their sense of happiness. Therefore, a change is a gradual movement that happens in stages. But what is the problem for those who embark on the path of self-improvement like we do? The problem is that we want to help those who are not in pure goodness too quickly. The second problem is that we start to identify ourselves with people in pure goodness too quickly. We lack the understanding that passion and degradation have a tremendous influence on consciousness. We need to study all of this. For example, the desire to eat meat is the influence of degradation. A desire to sleep with another woman who is not your wife is the influence of degradation. Wanting to punch someone in the face is the influence of degradation. Ignorance means degradation. There is a certain influence on our consciousness. When a person prioritizes busyness over self-improvement, this is passion. In this case, there's no time to go to a lecture today. It happens sometimes that there's no time, all sorts of things happen. But if a person always lacks time to go to a lecture, it means they are obsessed with their work. It's not that they're unlucky, this is their perception of the world. People differ so much from each other in their perception of the world. Let me show you this difference now. What I want to tell you now is the most important thing. Don't try to change people quickly, it's impossible. Through these attempts, you will destroy your families and destroy relationships. You will lose your job and other things. A person in pure goodness should be patient and indulgent towards this world and the lives of people around them. You should very positively and gently understand that each person moves through their fate at their own pace. If a person is very dear to you, it doesn't mean that you can change their pace. They move as they can, and they will always move as they can. If you move faster through your fate, it means that you have a slightly different fate. We can live together, but the movement towards truth and perception of the world can change much faster in one person than in another. This needs to be accepted. You won't be able to do anything about it. Now let's look at the layers of consciousness. I'm now describing how a person perceives the world. What is atheism? Atheism is a special form of life in the human body. It's a particular worldview and a particular perception of life based on a belief we live only once, so drink, party, and have fun. There is no next life. An atheist identifies with the body, therefore sex is love. If sex isn't working, there's no love. Why live together then, since we only live once? To them, treatment is just chemistry. They perceive themselves as bodies and think that only pills will help, while everything else is nonsense and fantasies. Pills cure because the body is just molecules. Their nutrition is proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and vitamins, because they eat what the body eats. This means that they need proteins and fats. For them, a balanced nutrition means balancing between fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. In relationships, an atheist's approach is highly pragmatic. They don't understand what conscience is. As long as they are getting something out of it, they see the relationship as worthwhile. If they're not getting anything, they question its value. Why live together? You won't change these perceptions in 5 minutes. This has been inside a person for a long time. It is embedded deeply over time, not just from this life. If you see a person behaving like this, they can't break out of this consciousness in 5 seconds. It's embedded deeply. The next level of consciousness is called moral atheism. This is what we saw in the Soviet Union. Moral atheism has concepts of conscience, duty, purity, correct behavior, and integrity, yet they also believe that we only live once. What do we live for? For the bright future of our children. They continue their life through their children. That's what moral atheists believe. They live for the future generations and their glory. Lenin is always alive. Lenin is always with me. They live in their glory. They live for the glory of their nation so that children will be happy. This is moral atheism. So the ideas are the same, but here a concept of a healthy lifestyle appears. People understand that they need to do sports for health. For a simple atheist, this doesn't matter. They just live as they live. A moral atheist wants development. They want culture. They want to preserve their family for a bright future. They don't have a bright future personally. They will die and cease to exist, but there is still a bright future for the motherland, for children, and so on. This is their philosophy and perception of the world. For atheists, science is the only basis for perceiving the world. If science has confirmed it, it's true. If science hasn't confirmed it, it's false. If you ask a moral atheist, what is love? They will say, love is good, but science doesn't know exactly what it is yet. Therefore, I can't explain what it is either. That's how they perceive the world. The next level is the energetic layer of life. You won't be able to change this person in 5 seconds, and you won't be able to immediately lift them to a higher platform. Because in this life, a person changes very slowly. The next concept is atheism, or more accurately, ritual theism. What is it? It is when a person believes that God exists and that He is needed to help them be happy. That's the concept. That is, God exists, but He is needed for something in my life. Such people are strongly focused on themselves. Their life revolves around them, and God also revolves around them and their needs. In the temple, all prayers of ritual theism are a sort of request. They come to the temple and start asking God for this and that. God needs to be constantly reminded. He's probably old and has been living for a long time. He might have a memory loss. He forgets. He has many living beings to remember. You need to constantly ask Him many times to do what you need. You need to constantly remind Him about yourself. This is a certain perception of the world. Such people fear God. They are afraid. They assume God, at best, won't punish them, but most likely will punish them. God feels slightly wrathful, and He constantly punishes everyone. So you need to do everything right so that God doesn't punish you. If you don't do it right, you are doomed. A ritual theist has a conscience, but doesn't quite understand how to apply it. He thinks he needs to do everything right. It is as if they are walking somewhere new, and they are acting timidly. Shush, shush, shush. Everything needs to be done right, not to get in trouble here. Therefore, they are tied to certain rituals. They want to do everything right, without fully understanding why. Their faith is mainly based on fear. Now we come to moral theism, which is the next level. Here a person lives for the benefit of others. He lives according to the scriptures. They view God not as a scary guy who punishes everyone, but as the one who gives knowledge. Should He punish them? He punishes only when necessary and justly. In moral theism, a person gains a new perspective on the world. They begin to see that this world is kind by nature, but they are sometimes acting foolishly. This world punishes you if you go the wrong way. It can punish severely, but its essence isn't cruel. Evil forces do not dominate this world. They just play some role of their own. Moral theism means that a person wishes happiness for everyone, loves nature and people around, lives, studies, and wants to live according to knowledge. But there is an even higher level of consciousness than moral theism. This level is called selfless devotion to God. A person lives for God, not for their personal happiness. Here, a profound shift happens. Previously, people always lived for their own happiness. Once they cross this line, they are no longer residents of this world. If a person fulfills a mission in this life for God and lives for God, then this person no longer belongs to this earth. He belongs to God. A person can burn all their bad karma in one lifetime and reach the spiritual realm because they live for God. These are very rare people. This is called true abstention. Abstention doesn't mean not wanting to see this world because it's bad or sinful, while seeing oneself as pure and elevated. This is not an abstention. This is a cunning position. True abstention is mission-driven. A person enters this world to help others because they know that God wants this from them. They can be monks or just ordinary persons. Serving God is a higher concept of life. An even higher concept is called love for God. This is already holiness. This is the highest state attainable for us on this earth. If you connect with a person who loves God, this love for God is immediately laid in your heart as the basis of life, and it destroys all obstacles to progress. The highest goal of human life is to find contact with holiness, and build a close relationship with someone who has reached this level of consciousness. You can establish this contact simply through an icon. There are saints like Sergius of Radonej, Seraphim of Sarov, Mother Teresa, and so on. They all reached the highest goal of human life. If you build relationships with them, then you too will achieve the highest goal of human life sooner or later. Here is rule number 1. The first rule is that close relationships decide everything in life. If I, for example, build a close relationship with a person who spits in my face or is unfaithful to me, it degrades me because it is extremely energy-consuming to build a close relationship with someone who cuts my heart with a knife. However, if you build close relationships of deep faith, if you build a close relationship with someone who is naturally devoted to God, they will never betray you. This means that you and your heart will be nourished with happiness in this case. Today's talk is meant to make your life easier by addressing these topics thoroughly. Many questions surround this issue. I can't answer them individually, but consider this. You seek happiness, right? Happiness can vary. Most people around you are in a state of passion. Rarely are people in pure goodness. What does it mean when a close person is in passion? A close person always personifies my fate. This means that in the past, I didn't want to seek God or a life of pure goodness. Now fate tells me, why are you so quick? Live with me a little longer and understand, pay the price. When we see before us a person who is not interested in self-improvement, they perceive any lectures as a sect. They dismiss everything related to self-improvement. This person represents your fate, and you should treat it kindly. If this happens exactly like that, then there will be a close relationship between you and this person. Mainly people think that a close relationship involves intimate conversations. But you can only build close relationships with spiritually developed people. It's also essential to understand that there are 2 types of close relationships. Some close relationships bring personal happiness, but these close relationships are not innermost. When 2 people live together, they simply use each other for pleasure. When people use each other for pleasure, there is nothing profound about it. Profound means complete selflessness, so family relationships by definition cannot be too deep. Even if the person next to you is spiritually developed, when you have a family life with them, it will be very difficult for you to share innermost things with them because they aren't seeking this from you. They want happiness from you. Imagine they kiss you and you respond to them, "Listen, wait, let's think about God." They'd likely reply, "Listen, I'm kissing you. I'm enjoying you, actually." Do you understand my point? You want a profound relationship from the person who wants to enjoy you. Here's a spiritual joke. A wolf is chasing a rabbit to eat it, and the rabbit thinks, "Please make him religious. Give him a religious conscience." He says this to God. Meanwhile, the wolf, while chasing the rabbit, prays, "Lord, give me delicious food." The wolf becomes religious but continues chasing the rabbit. What does this mean? It means that if you want deep and pure relationships, look for them elsewhere. Keep them separate. If you want deep and pure relationships, go to a temple. Find a mentor and communicate deeply and intimately. Moreover, you need to consider what kind of person it is. If you're a woman, it's better to find a female mentor. For a man, a male mentor is fine. When a man starts on a spiritual path, he shouldn't seek a female mentor, and a woman shouldn't seek a male mentor. This is because she doesn't understand what deep means. She thinks that if he loves her, it means it's deep. If he looks at her and smiles, she thinks they're communicating deeply. You see, a mentor is someone who doesn't perceive you as a body. He doesn't smile at you as a woman. And if he does smile at you that way, it means he's not a mentor, he's disqualified. There you have it. If you want happiness in this life, separate one from the other. The happiness of close relationships, which means family relationships. This is happiness where people enjoy each other, experiencing pleasure together when fate is good, and suffering together when fate is bad. That's it. This is the happiness of close relationships. Don't confuse it. But if you want to turn close relationships into spiritual ones, that's another matter. For this, you need to set up an altar at home and play spiritual music. You need to always bless the food when you cook and maintain spiritual purity. Gradually, close people will be purified. This is what you should do in a family to preserve it, because remember, when you live together to raise children, to improve your living conditions and to have a great job, this doesn't necessarily mean fidelity. Some people think, we have a family, we have children, we have an apartment, we have relatives, we're married. Why did you leave me? Remember, having a family, an apartment, relatives, children, and a job doesn't necessarily mean fidelity. It simply means a very strong interest in being together. But this strong interest, I repeat, ends when a person is worn out. The greater the desire for prosperity, the less energy there is to live, because this desire increases tension in a person. There comes a moment of tension when a person doesn't need all this anymore. They just need happiness, and so they leave for another person, because they always perceive happiness simply as being with another person. People in pure goodness believe in God. People in passion believe in people, and people in degradation believe in themselves and in evil forces, not that they worship devils. They just believe that someone has put the evil eye on them, cursed them, or that our country is cursed. That's the kind of talk they have. You can't change faith in 5 seconds. If a person is worn out with children, a spouse, and everything else but no happiness, they cannot sacrifice their happiness to stay in the family. A passionate person cannot. For them, their happiness is the most valuable thing in life, so they leave everyone and go to another person, a so-called upgrade. They make an upgrade. Remember, if you live with someone and don't gradually shift life to a spiritual plane, that person will definitely leave. This is my prediction. Because all people gradually become overstrained in a passionate life. What does a passionate life do to a person? It takes away their free time, health, strength, patience, and calmness. It gradually leads them to the inevitable collapse of what they currently have in life. If a person lives only for necessities like work, home, and everything else, it leads to collapse. Why did this happen to us? Because you lived incorrectly. The answer is very simple. Understand that only holiness, only purity, only God, only the spiritual gives a person true irrigation of the heart, relief, and conscience, and gives them knowledge. Let's say a woman says, "My husband, he's not in a state of pure goodness." Women understand this. If we talk about pure goodness, a woman's heart is closer to God. God made it so that a woman perceives the world more purely. And she should pass this perception on to her husband. You say, "Dr. Torsunov, I want to marry a man who is in pure goodness so that he would lead me to God." You're talking about the result of your life already, but God has other plans. He gives you a man who needs your purity so that you can pass on your pure perception of the world to him. Then he will lead you. This is God's arrangement. Because men who are going to God live in monasteries or are all occupied. The modern method of marriage means take the gold out of the dirt and wash it. So wash it. You have a man. The male psyche is strongly focused on work. For a man, pure goodness means responsible work, preserving the family, and a very serious attitude towards his duties. This is male pure goodness. Female pure goodness means purity in the heart, conscience, and movement towards God. When a woman creates such an atmosphere at home, where there is movement towards God, a man gradually begins to realize the necessity of these things too. As soon as he realizes this, it means you have 90% protected yourself from loneliness. It will never be 100% in this world because there can be a difficult fate that affects everyone. It doesn't care whether you're in the mode of pure goodness or passion. If you want happiness with a close person, separate these two things. If you want to frankly talk to them about your spiritual realizations, specifically for a husband or wife, it's difficult even for me. You understand? My wife practices spiritual life. She's strongly moving towards God. But even for me, it's difficult to be frank with her on spiritual topics because family relationships are naturally self-interested. We're going towards God together, we have common interests, but it's better to be open with a mentor or with spiritual brothers and sisters who have different relationships with you. The greater the attachment to personal happiness, the less room there is for spiritual revelations, so don't expect one from the other. Or there's another problem people have. They want to combine work with spiritual practice. This is also impossible. My work doesn't bring, I want my work to bring me. Just make yourself a very spiritual toilet at home. Sit there and pray while you are there. Work is simply self-maintenance. There are needs, you see. When a person goes to the toilet, it's a need. Work is also a need. It's necessary to live, eat, drink, to live somehow. That's what work is needed for, and that's why it's more or less befouled. You work. If you want to work in pure goodness, it means having a good attitude at work, loving everyone, respecting everyone, and caring for everyone. A person works according to their fate. If their fate is difficult in relation to work, they will have difficult work. I have difficult work. Some people say, "Why is it difficult? You're just talking, aren't you? Try it. I had a 4-hour flight today to talk to you, and I didn't sleep only for 4 hours. It's hard work. And yesterday at 11 o'clock at night, I was still talking to people in Tel Aviv. People in Tel Aviv didn't want to let me go. They loved me just like you do after the lecture. They all need relationships, and relationships with elders are very rare in this time we live in. Everyone wants to ask because people experience a very strong spiritual hunger, a tremendous spiritual loneliness. And the reason for this is low level of development, because any developed in faith person has a mentor, has a spiritual family, and doesn't experience spiritual loneliness. They don't suffer from spiritual hunger. They always have someone to consult with, ask something. But if a person is limited by their work and their life, this is called living in the mode of passion. That's why they are lonely. Life in passion makes a person lonely. If you want material progress, want money, want success, you will be lonely. Even in relationships with your loved ones. Why? Because these relationships don't bring people closer to each other. Deep, close relationship between people is possible only if there is an altar. If there's an altar at home, you'll be closer. If there's no altar, you'll be further apart. But if you want happiness in your personal life, that's different. It simply means fulfilling your duties, treating others kindly, having a gentle and kind style of relationships and behavior. The happiness of personal life means forgive, accept the person, take care of them. But if you want to include deep, frank conversations about God there, then set up an altar and wait for your perception of the world and theirs to be purified over the years. Then you can also include this in your life, but it won't happen soon. In general, it's best to set up an altar so as not to lose your husband. It's very important to understand that when a person is enlightened by knowledge, the first thing that comes into their life is not conscience. This is my experience. At first, nature and good friends come into their life. They stop being sick and narrow-minded. They start a healthy lifestyle, do exercises. They invite friends to their home. They have a good, kind company that doesn't talk about how everything is bad in the country, but talks about good, sublime things. This is the first thing that happens in a person's life. And this brings happiness. It's friends who can preserve a family. Moving into a life in the state of goodness means that one ceases to be so lonely in this world. Because if there are friends, they will preserve the family. They won't let you separate. You need to devote time to relationships in your life. You should seek these kind relationships with people. This is very important in our time. This will protect you more. What is passion? Passion is when a person is very much attached to things, they give all their energy to them. They think this is the most important thing in life. This means destructive. It's destructive when money and things are the most important in life. The idea that if you give someone money, it means you love them is in passion. This is passion. People strive for success. They are ready to turn their wallet inside out. That means a person worked hard, put in great effort for some piece of clothing. They gave their blood for this piece of clothing. If you have certain clothes, then you are really cool. We walk around looking very cool because others don't have what we wear. You see, this is simply a wrong perception of the world. People work themselves to the bone for these external things. Although human life is meant for deep relationships, for loyalty, for depth. Well, how to achieve this loyalty? Do you think if you bought a cool piece of clothing, a person will be more loyal to you? No, they will be more loyal to the clothing, not to you. If someone is rich, then that's the idol, the one we respect. This is what passion means. What should be done? The first thing to understand is that a person shouldn't think that their loved one will help them. A loved one is our fate, it's our test. One should set oneself up for help from elders, the scriptures, from people of pure goodness, from a community of pure goodness. A person who has switched from relying on relatives to save them has moved into pure goodness. Relatives are not a life preserver. They are those who test us. Even for people in the state of pure goodness, relatives will still test them, because when a difficult fate comes, relatives will be the ones to deliver this difficult fate, not someone else. Even for people of pure goodness, this doesn't mean that relatives are bad people. Relatives are the closest people in terms of relationships. But in terms of intimacy, help, and reliance, the closest people are spiritually developed individuals. When a person makes such a choice in their life, they understand that relatives are their close ones. They bring me happiness or suffering. They are my close ones, but they are not spiritually close. You won't be able to tell your husband the most important thing in your life, but you can tell him what will bring him joy and what will bring you joy. A person cannot give up the desire for happiness in this world. They can't give up precisely the happiness of these kind relationships. This is passion, this is not pure goodness. Because a person of pure goodness needs only deep relationships, sublime relationships. And the reason they experience happiness in relationships with a loved one is loyalty, purity, and the fact that they are walking together on the same path. This is what love means for a person of pure goodness. For a passionate person, love means we caress, kiss, love each other. That's okay too. A person cannot live without love. Just evaluate yourself right, but don't expect anything from it. Because if you start expecting too many sentiments, then you're switching one thing for another. If a person has betrayed you, you cannot build very close relationships with them. This is where the line is drawn. And what is loyalty in general? Let's say you're moving towards God, and your loved one is moving towards God alongside you, even if not in your spiritual tradition. This is called loyalty. But if we live together for our children, this is not loyalty. It's more like cooperation. Perceive everything right, and then there will be no break in the heart. You live together because you want to be happy, right? Being happy means we enjoy each other. If bad fate comes, will you be able to enjoy each other? No. And if you also believe that what was between you is the most important thing in life, that's when problems begin. Because the most important thing in a person's life is purity, holiness, depth. This is the most important thing in life. And you have to get really attached to it gradually. And when a person becomes attached to this, even if a break begins, if bad fate comes into the relationship, where does it come in? Can bad fate come into relationships with a mentor? No. Because these are spiritual relationships, there is no fate there. Bad fate comes into relationships with the person with whom you enjoy life. And then, if you have a mentor, if you have purity, this purity will save your family. Because at this time, you won't think that this loved one has betrayed you. What does bad fate do? It says, look at them. The one you loved, they are being capricious, angry at you. They don't love you. Why don't they love? Because they have no strength. Bad fate drains a person's energy, making them unhappy. Improperly chosen distance in relationships with loved ones is the cause of tremendous human suffering. What is distance? Distance means expectation. If you expect more from a close person than you should, then everything ends very sadly. Let me repeat once again. Your close person cannot guarantee that a rupture won't appear between you, because your loved one is not the reason for the rupture. You might think, they betrayed me, made me suffer. But the problem comes from fate. Fate acts through these close relationships. And when it starts to affect the relationship, only purity that comes from God, from holiness, from pure relationships can help a person. If a person has managed to establish a relationship of pure goodness, has spiritual companions, has a mentor, they will never abandon a close person, will not destroy their family, even if that person behaves foolishly. I doubt even infidelity is sufficient reason to break up a family these days. I doubt it. After all, if the whole world is in the dirt, how can a wife or husband not get dirty? Look at how everyone lives. Debauchery is the norm of life. As soon as a person feels a little difficult, somebody immediately wink and say sweet words to them. In ancient culture, a woman who contributed to the infidelity of a married man was not only rejected by society, she was rejected by everyone. And here a woman calls and says, how can I help you? Imagine this, a criminal stabs someone and then calls, can I help you somehow? They stabbed someone in the family and then offered their services. People don't understand what sin is. They have no idea what purity is, what love is. They have no understanding of how to live at all. And in this situation, I'm sure that even infidelity of a close person is not a reason to abandon them in our time. They just got sick. It's an illness. It doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It arises from a wrong way of living. I repeat once again, if you think that prosperity is the main thing in your life, watch yourself. First, you'll have less free time. You won't have time to go on vacation together, no time to go to the park together. Watch yourself. When you've reached this stage, the next stage will be coldness in the relationship. If you don't have the opportunity to recover, there will be coldness next, because people can't be warm when they don't have the energy for it. At the next stage, there will be disruptions. If you have a very good family, what kind of disruptions will there be? A man has different options. A bad option for a disruption is to cheat. A good option for a disruption is to sit and watch detectives. Just sitting and watching all this nonsense on TV. Why does he watch? Because he needs to rest, he needs to relax. Also, a good option for a man is to go play football or something else, some sports games, some entertainment with friends, go fishing and sit there, whether the fish are biting or not. Why do they do this? It's rest. The psyche rests. When a person looks at the water, he relaxes from work in such a way. This is a good option, running like crazy through the forest near Moscow looking for mushrooms. This is a good option for relaxation, for passionate people. There are worse options. When a person starts smoking and drinking, this is already worse. And infidelity is even worse, but I'm just telling you the sequence of events. The more stressful life a person has, the worse the result will be. And a stressful life means wanting too much material things for oneself. I want a slightly bigger apartment. I want an apartment like this, cold relationships. I want a bigger apartment, already bad habits. Even bigger means family destruction. This is called passion. What you want, you get. You want material things, you get material. You want spiritual things, you get spiritual. The most interesting thing is that in reality, a person who spends time in nature, who makes good friends, who goes to the temple, they ultimately achieve material prosperity as well, because a person's material prosperity depends not on how much they work themselves to death, but depends on their devoutness. For your better understanding, let me show you this schematically. Imagine a magnet, and this magnet tries to stick nails to itself. A certain number of nails will stick to it. Why? Because it has a certain power to make them stick. This power is called devoutness. If you have a lot of devoutness, a lot of good people, many nails will stick. And if you have little devoutness, few nails will stick. No matter how hard you work, no matter what you do, nothing will work out anyway. It's just wrong to think that if I work a lot, I'll have more money. You need to develop as a person. You should do good deeds, become strong as a person. There is an ancient prayer in the Vedas. This prayer existed 5,000 years ago. It says that when a person simply reads sublime prayers very deeply in their heart, just by reading these prayers, they first gain their natural beauty and become very attractive. A woman becomes very beautiful, a man becomes very influential. Then they gain greatness, that means power over people. Then they gain a position in society. Then they gain money, that is, devoutness increases more and more. The first manifestations of goodliness in a person are their beauty. Beauty always means devoutness. If you see a beautiful person, it means they did good deeds in the past or in this life. Beauty is a sign of devoutness. Beauty is luck emanating from a person. Everyone needs beautiful people. Then comes self-esteem. A person becomes worthy and strong. I'm talking a lot about this now. Then they become very insightful and deep, meaning they can see people. That's it. A high position in society is already assured. Just devoutness. How much should a person work? As much as is necessary to sustain life, but one should rely on their development as a person, and not on the fact that I will earn a lot of money and I will be better off. You're not going to be better when you earn a lot of money because you have the wrong desires. All this money will slip through your fingers on all sorts of nonsense. Pay attention to your inner development. If you have time, pray, wish happiness to everyone, read spiritual books, do exercises, work on yourself. If you do exercises, you will live long. I'm not joking, I'm serious. The woman in the fourth row who is wearing glasses now really needs to do exercises because you're going through a difficult period in life and exercises will save you. And if you don't, then it's unknown. She does. Well done, good. Well, I just gave it as an example so you don't relax. There is a good song about starting a new life tomorrow. Why tomorrow? Not because I'm bad or you're bad, but because there's no knowledge. A person can be inspired to do something only by two things, either through strong fear or through a strong feeling of love or a great need for it. Until either of these is present, it's very difficult for a person to break away from the usual rut of life they're in. That's why it's tomorrow. You shouldn't blame yourself for anything. Don't. It'll be just wasting your energy in vain. We need to understand how the system works so that it's not tomorrow but today. And the system is this: friends have the strongest influence on a person in our time. If a woman befriends another woman who wants to work on herself, they'll call each other and say, "Let's go to the park today to exercise." And they can't not go out anymore because they promised to each other. This is love. That's how love influences. The second option: imagine that Apple Watch has developed a watch that predicts the appearance of hemorrhoids in the absence of exercise. And let's say you press it and it says, "Urgently go exercise. You have 3 days left before hemorrhoids appear." You think there's still time. And then 3 days pass and hemorrhoids appear. And then there's the next function: how much exercise you need to do now to make the hemorrhoids go back. This is called fear motivation. It also works. I'm lucky. God gave me the ability to see what's happening inside myself, and I'm motivated by this very well. When I arrived today on the plane, I realized how many vibrations entered my body. So I went to the sauna and sat there. First I was shaking in cold water, then lying in the Turkish bath. to cleanse energetic blockages with steam, and then I shook again, and only after that I left the sauna. This is a serious asceticism practice, but after this, all the vibrations from the plane left my body. This is knowledge. I know how it all works. But you can't have such motivation in your heart, because you don't know. You think everything is fine for you, like everyone else, more or less. It seems that way to you, but in reality nothing is fine. Therefore you motivate yourself with love. Friendship is the main force that makes a person live the right way. Call each other, knock on each other's doors. Passion means loneliness, isolation, focusing on one's own affairs. Such a person loses the ability to make friends, and this ability to make friends is what saves a person from this isolated life. I mean friendship, men should call each other in a manly way, women should call each other in a womanly way with love and kindness, and men with a bit of a challenge. Well, how are you? Did you watch the fight? Are you going to exercise tomorrow or not? I have no time. Your fate will knock you down then, but I'm going to go exercise, and so on. A man needs a little challenge. A challenge is necessary. If you have a close person and you think they're not living right and it hurts you a lot, then there are several things you should understand. First, this person is the embodiment of your fate. They're living wrong because you yourself lived like that in the past. God is testing you. This means that when you continue to live the right way, the time will come, and they will also start living the right way. This is the first thing you need to remember. Raise your hand if this time has already come for you and your close person has started living right. There are hands, so everything is fine. The process is going on. Second rule. There are different types of closeness. If you have a person who is close to you and makes you happy, know that together with that person you will also experience suffering. Just understand this point so you don't relax too much. And if you experience happiness together in life, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are close to you spiritually. Therefore, if they suddenly don't understand why you pray, why you listen to lectures, and you feel hurt, you're a close person, why don't you understand me in these matters? Then this is simply your ignorance. You don't understand that there are different types of closeness. There is spiritual closeness, and it lives in the temple and in spiritual relationships. And there's a desire to be together and experience happiness, which is also good. A person needs this, but it doesn't mean spiritual closeness. These are just common interests in life. Children, family, relatives, these are common interests in life. A close person in these interests is a close person. But this is a dangerous closeness, and therefore closeness to God should be above it, because non-spiritual closeness doesn't save a person, it conditions them. Because when someone loves someone very much in terms of material relationships, that love blinds the person. They don't see the qualities of personality. They don't even see the person's ability to live together. It's a blind feeling. The desire for happiness when one experiences happiness from someone is a blind feeling. It doesn't give an understanding of the future perspective of what will happen next. Therefore, you need to develop spiritually enough to have at least a more or less intelligent person by your side. Well, to see this intelligence in a person, you need to see the person's direction in life. It's not simple. And if your loved one is not directed towards spiritual development and you think they will never be moving that way, then this is your misconception. Why? Because they are simply a representative of your fate. Remember that in relationships you always need to choose the right distance with a person to maintain the relationship. This is the science that I want to present to you today. The first thing you should know, you should have very sincere and honest relationships with a person in the mode of goodness, but most likely this person will not be your relative. It could be an associate, a spiritual mentor. This is the first thing you need to know. Remember, most likely your personal relationships have a passionate nature, because the nature of relationships in pure goodness is such that people worship God together, they have very sublime aspirations, they have the same mentor in life, and so on and so forth. These people can talk about very deep things in their personal life. I repeat once again, attachment to each other has a very selfish nature. There is no or very little purity in selfishness, but the degree of it can be very high. Pure people can lead a pure life together and walk on the bright path. But when it comes to their close relationship, it's still not as pure and bright because it's a family relationship. Please understand this and don't take offense. Close people don't understand you spiritually because these are different relationships. These relationships are not intended for deep comprehension of the soul. They are intended for experiencing happiness in this world. These relationships are quite passionate in nature, so you shouldn't rely on them too much. What does this mean? Rely on holy people, rely on a mentor, rely on God, rely on your faith. And in your relationship with your loved one, be attentive and careful. Watch the relationship. The rule is this: the more hard fate enters into this relationship, the farther away you need to be from each other. In order to work through this difficult fate, I've told you many, many times to watch what kind of fate is between you. If good fate is coming, be closer, experience happiness from life together. But if you feel that things are getting worse, keep your distance. You need to understand the principle: immerse yourself in a relationship with God. Only God can overcome difficult fate. Good people, nature, and God help to overcome difficult fate. Be closer to what truly saves you. Close people don't save you. They just make it possible to enjoy life. If you have failed to detach from your loved one at the time when you need to detach, the destruction of the relationship begins. Why? Because when your relationships become worse, bad fate activates. You should distance yourself to overcome this bad fate, and then get closer again. First overcome this fate, then get closer. That's the point. Watch your distance in relation to your loved one. If you see that it has become difficult to communicate, don't push it. This is compared to a frog crawling into a boa constrictor's mouth. Well, there aren't that many frogs who really like to crawl into a boa constrictor's mouth, but there are some. And we need this comparison to understand that we are such frogs. Each of us is such a frog. Why? Because when a relationship with a loved one starts to fall apart, what do? We go to talk to them. This is exactly like crawling into a boa constrictor's mouth. This is exactly what fate wants. What does it do? It comes between people and tension arises in a relationship. What should you do? You should step back, pray to ease the tension, and then communicate. But if you go to sort out the relationship, then know that it will only get worse. It won't get better because you're walking into a boa constrictor's mouth. You're not going towards kindness. You're going towards your own death, because you will be tormented through your close person. Preserving relationships is always done the same way. Step back without clarifying anything, calm down, endure, and pray. When calmness comes to your heart regarding the close person, the next stage is the possibility to communicate. That's all, that's the principle. And when you communicate with them kindly, they will understand you better and you will understand them better. That's how you can overcome your fate. I've tested this in my family. Everyone has a hard fate, and so do I. And when things were difficult with my wife, we simply went to a mentor. He listened to us. He didn't even give us advice. He just looked at us with kind eyes. And we accepted each other immediately after that. Why? Because we overcame bad fate with the help of an elder. It's quite simple. When fate retreats, the heart becomes calmer, people forgive each other, accept everything, and there are no problems. We build up these problems. Why? Because we don't realize that the person has a good attitude towards me. It's just hard for them to live right now. That's the whole problem. And if you understand this, then just pray and overcome this bad fate with the help of spiritual strength. This is what everyone needs to learn to understand. Spiritual strength really pushes away bad fate. It's not a fantasy or fiction. It really works, and very quickly. You should concentrate very much on those who pray together with them, and enter this space of prayer. Especially in these times, praying together helps. This was predicted long ago by the scriptures. With individual prayer now, a person cannot overcome fate. They don't have enough strength. You should pray with someone together. And then there will be an opportunity to overcome fate. If you do this, your heart immediately becomes lighter towards your close person. What does fate do? It exaggerates and dramatizes. Everything is bad for you. This is an unsolvable situation, that's it. Dr. Torsunov will probably say that we should separate. It's all impossible. Fate exaggerates like this. But if you communicate with kind people, your heart becomes calmer. And you think that everything is fine, it'll get better. Is that so or not? This means that you have eased your fate. Why do we need close relationships with kind people? We need them precisely to overcome fate, so that there is no such panic nor despair in the heart. Is the system clear? It's fun to walk this path together. The question is with whom? If you, God forbid, have a close relationship with an ignorant person, you shouldn't ask them for advice. A person of pure goodness is one who understands what closeness is. If you build a heartfelt relationship with an ignorant person, your life will be ruined. That's it. You can't count on anything. Because faith passes through close relationships just as aroma passes from one flower to another. Faith is transmitted this way, so you shouldn't listen to the wrong people. For example, you go to some astrologer and they say, "You're destined to be lonely." This means that this person's faith is in degradation. Why did you come to them? They can hide behind any knowledge they want, but they have passed on to you faith in degradation. Because faith in pure goodness means that a person can overcome everything in their life. If they are connected with God, this is faith in pure goodness. And faith in degradation means loneliness. If you look at them, they themselves are lonely. Don't communicate with such people. Your female consciousness and fear makes you listen to all this nonsense. Don't give in. Remember the principle. If fear arose in your heart as a result of communicating with someone, it means they ruined your life. If you came for a consultation and became scared about your life, it means they ruined your life. This person has faith in degradation in their heart, and they passed it to you. Now you should go to those people who will correct this. It's better not to go where they ruin your life. Principle number 1, relationships with passionate people should be restricted. A person may not be passionate, but the relationship is passionate. What are passionate relationships? These are family relationships. If you have a husband or a wife, what kind of relationship is it? A relationship in which you enjoy life. You shouldn't take them too deeply to heart. You shouldn't be surprised that your close person enjoys you in the wrong way. There's always excess and enjoyment. Well, they got carried away. What to do? They got carried away. It's not a big deal. Don't be surprised by anything in relationships with a close person. You've become completely insolent. Everyone becomes insolent. If a person enjoys another person, they will definitely become insolent. Don't be surprised. Just keep your distance. What distance should you keep with a passionate person? So that it's not too hot, so to speak. Watch these relationships. If you have a spouse and children, you should watch these relationships. If it gets hot, step back a little and pray. If everything is good, get a little closer. But there are also people in degradation. Who are people in degradation? People in degradation are not necessarily monsters. They are not long-nosed, scary people wearing glasses. A person in degradation is a person broken by life. Your close person can become degraded. They start drinking heavily, or they start cheating, and you're in shock. What's happening? They used to be good, normal people. They can become seriously ill. This is also degradation. When a person gets ill, they can't think straight. If your close person has entered the zone of degradation, what should you do? The first thing to understand is that if your attachment to this person is too strong, you will lose yourself when you're with them. You will lose yourself and won't be able to help them. A life in degradation means that a person is sinking in a swamp, but if you're saving someone from a swamp, there's one principle. You need to hold out a stick to them. If they grab the stick, then you have to pull them out using that stick, and they have to pull themselves out at the same time. But if they start pulling you towards them, it means you'll end up in the swamp. If you're in contact with a degrading force, you need to be extremely careful because this force can pull you in. The principle is very simple. Maintain a long distance. Let's say if a close person starts drinking, you should live separately. Well, I mean drinking heavily. If it's just a little, okay, let it be. But if they're drinking heavily, live separately, because evil spirits will affect your consciousness. You won't notice how it happens. Your consciousness will be filled with nothing but despondency. This means that you're also in degradation. There's female degradation, which is depression, and there's male degradation, which is drinking. A man doesn't live in depression, he drinks. A woman lives in depression. Depression is female degradation, while male degradation is drunkenness. And degradation always means contact with evil spirits, and contact with evil spirits is a direct path to hell. Therefore, get out of this state. The only way to get out is to run away. You should keep your distance, either physical or mental. It all depends on what happened. At this moment, you need to pray to God very hard and fulfill your duties towards the person. If they're showing non-aggressive degradation, let's say they're depressed, but they're kind, then fulfill your duties. But don't engage in close conversations like, why are you so unhappy? The answer will be like that. Why are you so happy? The most important thing here is to understand the rule, because degradation is a very difficult fate. It can get a person off track. You live with a person and bam, they cheated on you. This means they've gotten off track. You think, well, you have a good life, you cheat, you have the right. No, it's not a good life for them. It's not good for them. It's a feast during the plague. The strongest poison on earth always has the sweetest taste. When you see that sickly sweet expression on their face, so what? Yes, I'm cheating. If you saw the cloudiness in their eyes, that means they're not happy. It only seems to them that they're happy. They're in the deepest, most difficult spiral of fate. This person is in a terrible state. You just need to acknowledge my words. Nothing good is happening to them at this time. And very soon they will realize it themselves. But if you start trying to get the truth out of this person, at that moment you will degrade. When a person has stepped even 1 foot towards degradation, there's only one way to communicate with them: distance and prayer. You can fulfill your duties towards them, but you shouldn't try to sort out your relationship. It's pointless. A person is cheating on you, so only misfortune will help them. The woman says, I immediately at once move out and live separately, and then he just leaves her. This is what will help. Nothing else. Only sobering up will help a person in degradation. Nothing else will help. But if you want to sort out your relationship with them and explain to them what a life of pure goodness is, they will befoul you with their reaction. Because you're entering the lair of evil spirits, what is a life of degradation? A person has been broken. When bad fate breaks a person, evil spirits start to attack them. These are mental illnesses, drug addiction, debauchery, crime, and so on. If you see sexual perversions, rude behavior, criminal behavior around you, it means the person is under the influence of evil forces. This person doesn't belong to themselves. It's useless to talk to them. It won't help. And if you want to help a person in passion, just understand what kind of relationship you have with them. Do you have a business or family relationship with them? What does a business relationship mean? When you have an altar at home, and you both worship this altar, both study the scriptures, both have a mentor, even if not the same one, this means that between you there's not only a business-family relationship, there's also a pure, bright love between you. But you need to come to this love. And only in this case there is a heartfelt relationship. Only in this case. But you need to get to this point, because when people kiss, meet, and fall in love, it's not a heartfelt relationship. It's just using each other for pleasure. In Tel Aviv, when we were very tired after the lecture, we went swimming in the Mediterranean Sea at night. We lived right by the sea. We did it under the moonlight because we needed to recover somehow. And at this time, on the seashore, people were building what seemed to be very deep, intimate relationships with each other. But these weren't deep relationships. It was simply enjoying each other, and that's all. There's nothing intimate in this. Absolutely nothing intimate. People attach such great importance to the fact that they're thrilled by someone. This is degradation and lack of knowledge. Intimacy means serving God together, being faithful to each other. This is intimate. But you need to work towards this, that's all. This is the way, and it must be followed. But if you have an altar, you serve the altar, and your close person says, don't worry about it, everything's fine without an altar, it's not a big deal. Don't think they will never understand. If the depth of their heart opens up to you and you see that there's no depth there, it's okay. This is normal. Continue to serve God. Think about Him. You'll see how gradually depth will appear in their heart. Just understand that you need to wait longer than you think. And don't impose anything. Don't impose spiritual things. Don't tell them you're living in crap. Don't say such things to them. Just say, yes, yes, of course. But a reasonable person in pure goodness always avoids arguments. If I were in such a situation with a close person, if they said, for example, you're a fanatic, I would say, well, can I be a fanatic for a little bit? I wouldn't give myself too much importance. I would try to joke. This is the right attitude towards a person in passion. Because a passionate person is all about showing off. Why are you listening to this guy? He acts cool at lectures. He just shows off. It means a person strongly feels that they know everything. But you understand the reality. And you need to treat this kindly. If, let's say, you have a child who looks at everyone very sternly, they are only 1 year old, and they behave like a boss, commanding everyone, will you be angry at them for this? No. They were a boss in their past life, that's all. They haven't yet realized that they have a different life now. It's impossible to understand this immediately. So they behave like this out of habit, all businesslike. Similarly, your close person also thinks they're very cool. And this is okay. It's better than if they thought they weren't cool. Because a person in passion needs to be cool, otherwise they won't survive. A person in pure goodness no longer needs to be cool, because they gain inner strength. But a passionate person always has to show their external strength. For example, if they're sitting, they need to sit like this. Why? In order to look authoritative. But if you're doing something serious, they are serious too. The best way to be serious is to make fun of what you're doing. This is childish. Why do I make the comparison with a child? Because this is childish behavior, so treat it accordingly. Say, yes, yes, you're right. That's it. The time will come, they will understand everything. Know that pure goodness always overcomes passion. The sun always defeats darkness. This is the principle. This victory is always found in acceptance, calmness, patience, and maintaining the right distance. Why should you keep the right distance? Because if you start expecting too much from a person in passion, you'll burn out, you'll lose your inner strength, you'll befoul yourself. What is befoulment? Befoulment means that tomorrow morning you won't go to do your exercises. You've talked to your husband about how you live. Tomorrow morning you won't go to do your exercises, and that's it. Why? Because he has befouled you with his understanding of things. You shouldn't talk about spiritual topics with a person in passion. They haven't chosen this life. They don't have that consciousness. You should protect your heart. Remember, the most valuable thing in a person's life is their faith. Talk about faith with those who believe, and don't befoul your heart with those who don't believe. Don't befoul it. If you've prepared something delicious, one tiny drop of bitter taste will spoil the entire dish. It's the same here. You've prepared something delicious in your heart, so protect it. Don't let dirt in there. I'll say it again. Your loved one is a good person. If they're in passion and immerse themselves in their work and don't want to study anything, it doesn't mean they're bad. It's just a certain stage of development for them. At this stage, you should build a relationship with them considering their desires. This is what they want from life, nothing more. They don't understand that there's something deeper. Just live beside them as you do. Work on yourself. Know that this kind of life at the right distance is true kindness. Pretty soon they will change and will be drawn to what you're doing. The most important thing is not to burn them out, not to force them to do it, not to neglect them, not to impose anything. You should be very modest about what you are doing in your heart in front of your loved ones. Now you'll say, my mom doesn't allow me to attend the lecture. My dad doesn't allow it. My husband doesn't let me pray. That's the question. Do it in secret. No one can forbid a person from turning to God. It's the highest goal of human life. Imagine if someone forbade you to breathe. My loved one forbade me to breathe, but I want to breathe. It's a ridiculous issue, isn't it? Know that going to God is even more important than breathing. It's the most important thing in human life. Once a rather influential lady was driving me to a lecture and said, Dr. Torsunov, after I listened to your lecture, my life was divided into two parts, before the lecture and after. At that moment, she remembered her journey through life. She understood that she had to develop, turn to God, that this narrow-mindedness was not life. Raise your hand if the same thing happened to you. This means that you realized, but your loved ones haven't realized yet. It's okay, the time will come, they will understand. Just don't bother them. The best way to develop a person is to accept them. Remember this, you can accept them if you choose the right distance. If you get too close to a person in passion, you'll immediately start being frank with them. When you start being frank with them, a scandal will begin. Why? Because you're not ready to open your hearts to each other. You're only ready to enjoy each other. This is life in passion. I enjoy you, you enjoy me. We raise children together, work together, go to the theater and go on vacation together. This is simply enjoying each other. And we love to live like this. We live for our children, for our relatives, for our country, but in reality for ourselves. People live like this only wanting to please their feelings. There's nothing deep in such a life, but there is depth in the future if you behave right. Distance is a very important thing. You need it to maintain purity in your heart. Distance doesn't mean neglect. This is love. If I've chosen the right distance with a person, I can help them. I had a friend, a spiritual brother, who didn't choose the right distance. He decided to serve his spiritual mentor, my spiritual teacher, very closely. However, he wasn't qualified. His heart wasn't pure enough to be in a close relationship with him. He still decided to become his personal servant. As a result, he abandoned spiritual life. The reason is that he couldn't deeply understand the mentor while being too close to him. Remember, closeness doesn't always elevate. A wife may understand her husband much worse than everyone else. The same goes for a husband understanding his wife. People tell me, Dr. Torsunov, your wife gives very good lectures. Many people tell me this. I've never listened to them. They have a closer spiritual relationship with my wife in this regard than I do. Do you understand what I'm talking about? She's now recording an album. There's a very beautiful Vedic prayer in it. People say, oh, such a divine voice. She sings so beautifully. Looks fine to me, I don't know. In other words, we can't understand each other very deeply because our relationship is too close. It's very difficult for us to understand each other deeply because closeness interferes. Don't judge me, my dears, but you want the truth, right? We need to understand how this world works. So we're talking about building relationships with this world. How should a person live in this world? For example, let's take the city of Moscow, all the people around. How should we relate to this? We need to relate to this very kindly. There's Moscow. There are Moscow citizens. These are people who live their own lives. It's very hard for them, right? We need to relate to them kindly. But if we immerse ourselves in this environment with all our heart, we will be destroyed. You're riding the subway. What is your task on the subway? To preserve yourself. There's a destruction of your consciousness going on out there in the subway. Look at all the people. How are they feeling? They're all tense. They're all gloomy. Why? Not because they're bad, but because they have a difficult, stressful life. The more developed the city, the more passion there is. Passion means a strong desire to earn a living. This passion accumulates and people fall into this environment. What should a person do in the subway? They should put earphones in their ears and listen to spiritual music and wish happiness to everyone around. But don't get into close relationships with them because it's not the right state, not the right consciousness. If someone pushes you, don't take offense because they are in a different state of consciousness, in a different mood. If you suddenly see that Dr. Torsunov pushed you in the subway and is looking at you with wide eyes, it only means one thing: he has fallen under the influence of the force that surrounds him. That's all. It doesn't mean he has become a bad person. This force has enormous potential. If a person doesn't know how to maintain the right distance from this force, they will inevitably behave like everyone else. Inevitably. Don't be surprised why you argue with your husband despite wishing happiness to everyone. There are several reasons. The first one, you wanted too much happiness from him. The second one, the distance was too small. And the third one, you didn't notice that bad fate had already come between you. That's all. Then don't be surprised at yourself. Don't be surprised that your relationship is falling apart. Don't be surprised that you've separated and hate each other. And don't be surprised that he doesn't want to see you. What I'm telling you now, my dears, is a very complex and important topic for our lives. Being able to maintain the right distance from people means preserving yourself. It doesn't mean not loving them or being selfish, but it means loving them. To love someone, you need to have the strength for it. And if bad fate has come between you, what does it do? It takes away your strength. That's why you should keep your distance. Keeping your distance means not expecting anything. The wife says, "I've lived my whole life for you. How can you talk to me like that?" He talks to you as he can because he's under pressure from a force that you don't know. This force can completely separate you. And don't say, "How can you talk to me like that?" That's it. The bliss is over. The suffering has begun. Keep your distance and pray to God. This is your test in your relationship. Who is truly a person of pure goodness? The one whose attachment to God is stronger than to everyone else. If your attachment to God, to senior mentors, to spiritual life is already stronger than to everyone else, it means that you can now bring happiness to all of them. Only those who are stronger than fate can bring happiness, not those who want to bring it very much. Let's say I really want to help my wife, but a wall has come between us, meaning bad fate. I will keep hitting against it, and there will simply be tantrums, that's all. What should I do? I should start praying, overcome the bad fate, and then communicate calmly. The same with a child. Dr. Torsunov, my child doesn't listen to me. Yesterday in Tel Aviv, a woman told me, "He doesn't listen to me. There's a bad fate between you." But he's my child, Dr. Torsunov. He's my child. He used to always listen to me, but now he doesn't. Is he alive? I asked. Yes, but what do you mean? I didn't mean anything, I said. He's alive, so be glad. It can be even worse. You see what I'm talking about? Bad fate only comes between those who are close to you. Someone had a heart attack in the tram and accidentally died. It's unpleasant. You're also riding in this tram, but if it happened to someone close to you, the word unpleasant would be inappropriate here. You understand? We're talking about relationships that hurt a person deeply, so they need to be treated carefully. You should become attached to God very much and watch what's happening between you. If you see that it's getting worse, increase the distance, pray more, and fulfill your duties. Love means don't push your close person. It can be compared to jumping into the mouth of a boa constrictor. Now about the attitude towards the country. It should be kind and patriotic because only this protects the country. As soon as people start to believe that we'll go out on the street, beat up the police or someone else with bricks, and then happiness will reign in the country. This is a complete illusion. They already did this once in 1905. And did happiness come? 50 years of war. A change of power is a catastrophe, simply a catastrophe. This all plays into the hands of those who want to destroy life in this country. Don't give in to it. We need to be very supportive of the authorities. This is pure goodness. Passion means I don't give a damn about these authorities. I live here because it's beneficial for me. If it's not beneficial, I'll go live somewhere else. This is passion. Degradation is being a traitor to the homeland. Betraying everyone for money, this is degradation in relationships with elders, with authorities. Every country has a religious culture. What is pure goodness? To respect and love this religious culture. Here it's Christian culture. Respect and love it. For a person is pure goodness. It doesn't matter what faith a person has. Pure goodness means preserving everything, not spoiling anything. If you see that Moscow is a very tense city, people are running around like crazy, everyone is gloomy, it doesn't mean it's a bad city. You can look at Moscow differently. And then you'll be helping everyone, not hindering them. But if you start looking at this city from a position of degradation, then you'll ruin your life. The force of tension in Moscow has a colossal nature. If you get angry at Moscow, it will simply overwhelm you because there's a lot of tension here. Learn not to notice it. When you enter the subway, listen to spiritual music, listen to lectures, treat everyone kindly but not too much. Otherwise, you'll come into contact with this force of tension. Be careful, do not pay attention to anyone. Smile inside yourself. If someone suddenly smiles next to you, you should also carefully smile back at them. And most importantly, if passion is very strong in the place where you live, you should make enormous efforts to befriend those who follow the same path as you, simply enormous efforts. Then you will be able to overcome your fate. These people will be the ones saving your families. They will save your psyche from stress. They will save your life when things get tough for you. This is the most important thing. Communication with people of pure goodness. This is the most important thing in a person's life in a metropolis. And it's even better to have a mentor in your faith, and it's even better if you not just have one, but also follow their instructions, at least a little bit. Remember, postponing everything until tomorrow means fatigue. It means that you've simply exhausted yourself, overstrained yourself. You're living wrong. You've taken on too much. Take on a little less, otherwise your life will crack. The main problem in the life of a passionate person is breakdown. Don't break. If you feel that life has become hard, unbearable, it means you need spiritual life, you need sports. You should try to work less, and if you work a lot, try not to be involved too much in it. And if you see your boss is already in terrible degradation, change your job. Remember, contact with degradation should always be very cautious. With passion, you can have cooperation and friendship, but not too deep. But you should get closer to pure goodness with all your might. This is the principle of human life. If you've come into contact with bad fate and it's weighing you down, it has come into your life, you might say, it's my fate to live with this person. It's just a trial from fate. If a snake is crawling in front of you, it doesn't mean you should move towards it and see how fate will act. It's like when people used to play Russian roulette. Will it shoot or not? Eventually it will definitely shoot. Such people are very dangerous. Is it clear what I mean? This is called awful degradation. When degradation combines with power, it's a curse of fate when a person has authority and at the same time is in a state of awful degradation. Stay away from such people. Escape. If you're left without a job, it's not a big deal. One woman asked me, Dr. Torsunov, what should I do? My boss says, you will work for me. And if you don't work for me, then you won't work anywhere at all. I asked, and can he really do that? She says, yes, he has such power. You subordinated yourself to him. You saw where you were going. Or another woman tells me, Dr. Torsunov, you know, my husband is such a person that if I leave him, he will kill me. She should have thought better of it before marrying him. If degradation reaches an extreme degree, you should run away from it. You should escape. You just have to flee. This happens, nothing can be done. It depends on where fate has brought you. Dr. Torsunov, my mother doesn't let me get married. She demands care and attention. She thinks that if I get married and stop caring for her, I've abandoned her and betrayed her. This is degradation. What the mother is saying, daughter, die together with me. It's very difficult for the daughter to understand how to behave. She's kind, and her mother takes advantage of this. What's the solution? The solution is a firm position. You should distance yourself from your mother and start your own life. Your mother has no right to take your life for her own sake. If she's ill, you can find a caregiver. But if the mother says, stay with me and don't get married, then this mother is in degradation. You should maintain a distance in your relationship with her in order to save yourself. So what do we think of this city? It's good. What do we think of the political situation? All good, keep the distance. You don't need to listen to all the political news. Politics is meant to preserve the country. But preservation often comes at the expense of counterbalance. In other words, we are good, but what about them? They are bad. This already indicates passion. A person shouldn't immerse themselves in this. We are good, I agree. They are bad, that's your business. If you believe that some nation is bad, you are in the mode of passion. Each nation has their own fate, their own life. We should just pray to improve the situation in the country. If you say, they are bad, and call them something else, disparage their nation, then this is already passion turning into degradation. We are good, they are bad. This is incorrect thinking. In politics, they need such statements to keep themselves in politics. In politics, this is necessary. A country needs strong weapons to maintain peace. To preserve peace, you have to be very strong, otherwise there will be war. War happens where there is weakness. Everyone suffers because there's no protection. No protection means there will be an attack. At the global level, such things are necessary, but not at the level of a person's heart. We shouldn't have enemies in our hearts. Enmity with other countries means destruction of consciousness. We are children of one earth. We shouldn't be at enmity with anyone. At the same time, a person should defend their homeland, love it, respect elders, and obey authority. And not be against the fact that there is politics. Politics is necessary for self-preservation. For example, do we have politics in our body or not? Do we have politics in our body? No, you're mistaken. We have all kinds of macrophages there, that's politics inside the body. And they are in terrible passion. If they see something wrong, they immediately devour it. If they see a bacterium behaving wrong, they immediately gobble it up. Why? Because otherwise the organism will be destroyed. This means that every system requires maintenance and authority. There must be an army, there must be rapid response forces, immunity. This is how this world is arranged. Don't consider it as something bad, it's all fine. But you shouldn't get too involved in it. If you are a macrophage by nature, one person comes to me and says, Dr. Torsunov, I want to serve in the army, I want to fight. That's his nature. He is a very good person, a person of goodness. He's a warrior by nature. He needs to defend his homeland. He goes and defends it. What questions do you have? This is a very complex topic to understand. We are only talking about how to build relationships with different categories of people. This is a very complex topic. Your question?
Where can we find people of goodness?
In temples, but not everyone there is in goodness.
But what if my faith is different from the one in the temple?
So what? What difference does it make what faith you have? If you want to meet people in the mode of goodness, go to such people.
How should we approach them?
You don't need to approach anyone. You need to understand the principle. Goodness is your inner consciousness. By the way, this is a good topic. Thank you. Noticing faults in people is not a sign of goodness. You come to a temple and think, this person is not in goodness, and that one is not in goodness either. To hell with all of them. This is not goodness. Goodness means that you come to a temple and see mostly good in everyone. That's goodness. All people have faults. If you look at me from a critical point of view, you will think, Dr. Torsunov has a bunch of faults in general. What does he think he is? And if you look on the internet, you can read a lot of interesting things there, both right and wrong. Goodness means a very strong inclination towards a pure and right perception of personality. If you come to a temple and watch the worship, you get happiness from this. You have to differentiate. You say, not everyone in the temple is in goodness. There are people in goodness there, and there's a mix of goodness with passion, and there's a mix of goodness with degradation. I'll explain now how it looks. Let's say you enter some temple and an old grumpy lady runs up to you and says, put on a headscarf. This is a mixture of goodness and degradation. It's okay. Thank God she's in the temple, otherwise she'd be hanging out in some back alley. You come to the temple and there's someone standing like this. This is a mixture of goodness and passion. It's okay. You enter the temple and there's a kind person looking at you with kind eyes and not approaching you, not saying anything to you. They are just happy to see you and that's all. This is pure goodness. Modest, wise, intelligent, faithful, profound. This is pure goodness. It never intrudes into your soul. Only passion and degradation intrude into the soul. So you still need to learn to be friends with pure goodness. People in the state of goodness don't like to talk about politics or anything bad. They only talk about sublime things. If you're not interested in that, what will you talk to them about? Just be near them. Go where people of goodness gather, even if they are only a little bit in goodness. If you're really in the mode of goodness yourself, you won't notice that they're much in degradation. Goodness is when a person sees purity and tries not to pay attention to the bad. That's pure goodness. If a person only sees the bad and doesn't see purity, then what goodness is there? The most important thing on the path of self-improvement is to eliminate criticism from your heart. Seeing faults in a person means you don't understand at all how this world works. If you see faults, then immediately start to help. What does it mean to help a person? It means pray for this person, accept their faults, and calm down about these faults. This means that you help them to change, but if you can't do anything about it, then you shouldn't look. What happens if you look and can't do anything? You yourself start to become the same. You start to behave the same way. And you think that you're behaving right while doing this. This is duality. Passion is duality. Let's say you come to a temple and when you leave you say the faith there is just terrible. What makes you better than them in this case? Nothing. They behave that way and you behave that way. This is passion, duality. A person in passion is very susceptible to duality. If you're in pure goodness, you came to the temple, watched how the worship service was going, and when somebody asked you, how was the worship? You say, I really like this, this, and this. And did you notice some flaws? It's not a big deal. This is pure goodness. You noticed everything. Goodness doesn't mean being blind. You noticed that there were some flaws. If you say, it's not a big deal, they'll manage. This means that you bless them. But if you say it with sarcasm, it means you're the same as them. There's no difference. If one dog barked at another, another one started barking back too. A person passing by sees two barking dogs. They don't know which one started first. For this person, there's no difference between them. This is called passion. Pure goodness means not barking.
How to choose a mentor.
If there are several good mentors and you can't choose, it means you're in the mode of passion. A person in goodness chooses all three at once. A person in goodness doesn't divide, this is my mentor, all the others are not my mentors, this is my faith, I must forget everything else. A person in goodness loves everything around. All women are good, but only one I'm interested in. This is goodness. But if you think only this one is good, all other women are bad. This is passion. This woman is good if she loves me, but if she doesn't love me, I hate her. This is already ignorance. If she doesn't love me, I'll kill her. This is degradation. You should choose all three, and which of the mentors will enter deeper into your heart, God will choose. Communicate with all three, love all mentors. Which one will go deeper into your heart, God will decide. Then communicate more with that one, but love all the others just the same. Don't think, if I don't communicate with them, I've betrayed them. To think like that is a sign of passion. Dr. Torsunov, I'm in this faith. Can I go to another temple? No, you can't. This is passion. You need nature because you're experiencing physical exhaustion. You need nature. Also, you're offended by people. You should learn to build relationships with kind people. Your relationship with God is quite good. You've made great progress there, but the rest is lacking. Strength comes from the divine. Let's say your health is poor. You suffer from poor circulation and nervous system issues. God gave us nature specifically to take health from it. You might say, Dr. Torsunov, where is nature in Moscow? Nature is everywhere. There's a tree growing. That's nature. If you love trees, you immediately receive strength from them. It comes through love. Also, movement and fresh air is necessary. Got it? I repeat once again. Goodness means that you step over a certain barrier. I say again and again, a person in goodness is not a person of this world. If you want to love nature, you'll have to be different from everyone else. You'll have to go outside and do exercises there, while everyone else will be laughing at you. Everyone else is testing you. A person in pure goodness is not a person from this world. If a person has chosen their faith, they're already not like everyone else. If a person wishes happiness for everyone, they're already not like everyone else. If a person exercises, they're already not like everyone else. This is a certain challenge to this world, and you have to accept that it's so. A person in pure goodness is not someone who goes along with everyone. It's someone who goes where they need to go. You won't get far if you just go along with everyone. How to build an altar if the husband is of one faith and the wife of another? Who should build the altar? 2 people in goodness, 2 in passion, or 2 in degradation? 2 people in degradation should build altars in different rooms, lock them, and God forbid, one enters the others. It will be a disaster. 2 people in passion should build 2 altars and be careful, not to enter each other's territory, but respect each other greatly. They should build business-like relationships, kind relationships. This is your faith, this is mine. We don't touch each other's, but we love each other. People in pure goodness should make one altar and worship everything together at once. But you can't artificially become a person of pure goodness if you're in passion or degradation. Figure out who you are, what platform you're on, and make an altar considering your platform.
How do we figure it out?
Figure out what?
Whether I'm in goodness, passion, or degradation.
I showed you a whole chart about this. Could you pass her the microphone, please? It's a complex topic, very complex.
Hello. You were talking about duality. You gave an example about the temple, degradation with pure goodness.
We're all like that. We're all mixed.
How can I determine greater tendency?
If you come home, close your eyes, and think about how to cheat on your husband, it means you have a tendency towards degradation. If you close your eyes and think about how to earn more money, it means you have a tendency towards passion. And if you close your eyes and think, I wish happiness for everyone, and go to sleep in this state, it means you have a tendency towards pure goodness. The tendency is always manifested in a person when they're relaxed, not tense. Also by behavior. If you're dressed very brightly, this is passion. If you're dressed cleanly and calmly, this is pure goodness. And if you came with ripped jeans in certain places, this is degradation. Tendencies are determined by a person's behavior. If you came and said, Dr. Torsunov, how do I determine goodness, passion, and degradation? It means you're in passion. If you say, Dr. Torsunov, how can I determine goodness, passion, and degradation? It means you're in goodness. And if you say, why are you telling us nonsense here? Speak to the point. This is degradation.
What exists in its pure form?
Nothing exists in its pure form in this world. Everything is mixed.
What if a person changes over time? I'm changing. It turns out I can cause very strong pain, be passionate and assertive, and then the opposite.
Once during my lecture, the connection between illness and character traits, a woman asked me a question that I couldn't answer. She asked me, if only the left heel sweats, what character traits does that indicate? You may ask, Dr. Torsunov, I have a tendency towards goodness, but what to do if I'm constantly changing? Sometimes I have a tendency towards goodness, sometimes towards passion, sometimes towards degradation. What then, Dr. Torsunov? I don't know. Instability indicates passion.
For example, when I visit my grandmother in a village, it's easy for me to wake up early, exercise, and pray.
It means you have a tendency towards goodness.
But when I visit my husband's hometown, whom I love very much, it's always difficult for me to wake up there. It's hard to exercise, to do asceticism practice.
Do you drink with him there?
No, I don't do anything bad there.
If it's difficult for you to do something, it doesn't mean you've changed. It means you've entered different environments. That's what I'm talking about. Try to stay away from passion, even further from degradation, and closer to pure goodness. So you need to stay closer to your grandmother and be more careful with your husband if that's the case. Well, it doesn't mean he's a bad person. What does it mean if a person is constantly changing? This lady has put me in a difficult position, so to speak. Just imagine, what does it mean that I'm constantly changing? Let's say a man gives lectures, talks about God, then comes home and has a drink. Means he changed. He was so good and pure, then suddenly, oops, he had a little drink, which is in degradation. And then he went to a football match. Goal. So he changed again. Then again at the lecture he says, I wish happiness to everyone. I wish happiness to everyone. Well, something like that. What does this mean? It means that the person is not in pure goodness. He is not stable. He is only moving in that direction and very susceptible to environmental influences. It means attachment to everything. For example, I'm attached to a pub. I pass by and I just can't help but go in to see how they are degrading there. I can explain it to myself however I want, but if I go in there and hear them singing, watch how they're degrading. This is called attachment. I like it. It means I'm attached to all of this, but if I'm not attached, I won't go in there. One person approached me and sincerely asked, Dr. Torsunov, how do you live without meat? Poor you. I didn't know what to tell him. I suffer so much without meat. I suffer so much. Or they ask me, you don't drink at all? You don't allow yourself anything at all? I say, what should I allow? It's funny to me, because this person is telling me that I live in terrible asceticism, but today I had such a big and tasty lunch that I could barely sit. Blessed food is tastier, more nutritious, and 1,000 times better, and living without alcohol is just super easy. It's a great life. There's no asceticism here if you understand this. Swimming in an ice hole is just excellent. It's not like I'm taking myself to hard labor. Running 16 kilometers in nature is the highest happiness. A life of goodness is not asceticism, it's happiness. It's just that people who are in a different state of consciousness don't understand this. They say, "What, Dr. Torsunov, you've never cheated on your wife?" Why would I? Why should I do something so awful? If you have pure, bright relationships with your wife, why would you want to ruin it? You need to understand this. If a person is constantly changing, it means they simply haven't understood yet. They're still on this path. Study it. When you understand what pure goodness is, you won't want to go into degradation.
Dr. Torsunov, how long ago did you stop eating meat?
My dear, I stopped eating meat a long time ago. More than 30 years ago. I don't even remember its taste anymore.
And what about your parents? Didn't they feed you meat when you were a baby? At 1 year old or 1.5?
Not just a baby. 8 times my mother won first place in cooking competitions in our town. Top chef competition. She cooks very well.
I have a difficult question. My daughter has a baby. She lives in Tolyatti. She's distanced herself from me. She says, "I will only feed the child as Dr. Torsunov advises. No meat, no eggs." She doesn't give anything, no proteins.
The child will die, that's it.
Well, I just have a question.
No, the child will die, that's it. A child can't live without meat at all, there's no chance.
Is it supposedly forbidden?
Is vegetarianism forbidden? And she doesn't even give milk? Is there any protein at all? Well, of course it's necessary, it's impossible to live without it at all. You know, I actually do eat some. Also, it's impossible without meat at all. My dear, my child has never even smelled meat, never even smelled it. You're just in terrible degradation. You don't understand the truth. I'm telling you, I'm conveying to you. No one needs this food. A person doesn't need this food. It brings no benefit at all. It exists only for one reason. There are 3 things that people love very much and wait for. For all of them, there is only one reason. The soul in this world is very attached to the body. That's why it wants to eat flesh. Because a coarse, bodily, crude desire of the body is to eat, to devour flesh. In this flesh, there's only one meaning, the desire to enjoy the body. The subtle desire to enjoy the body is sex, and alcohol ignites the desire to enjoy the body. A person who is deeply attached to these 3 things will never understand themselves as an eternal soul. As for food, the best food is milk, not meat. Dairy products are easily digested. They enter the body very deeply and help it very much. And if we talk about vegans who don't eat dairy, I've seen such people and such children too. You see, this food is also very well absorbed. Even without animal protein, a person can live perfectly without any problems. You don't understand anything because you're attached to meat and think that this food is absolutely necessary and useful because it pleases your senses better than any other. You're in degradation. You don't understand that this food doesn't give a person any benefit, no benefit at all. It is the main carcinogen. This food contains a very strong depression. This food contains all the toxins, all the hormones, antibiotics that are now being crammed into this meat industry. A person devours these hormones and antibiotics along with this meat. I'm not even mentioning that, in general, this food is a product of decay. Putrefactive functions start in the body and you can't stop them. You eat this depression and think it will help you, and you want your child to eat it. I remember when I was only 3 years old, my grandmother and grandfather, who loved me very much, slaughtered a pig in front of me, and then they fried its blood and gave it to me to drink. Then I was sick. Horrible? This horror is in your head.
Can close family relationships be destructive, or is it just a bad period?
Close family relationships, my dear, always act destructively, but these relationships are necessary because we owe something to someone. Close relationships always mean debts. That means we are in close relationships with people because we owe something to this world. When a person is born in this world, they must pay off a debt. The very birth in this body means that someone gave birth to you and you have to pay for it. This is called close relationships. If you've paid, you've received happiness. If you don't want to pay, you won't get it. Let's say you have a wife and 2 children. You live with them, your wife goes through a bad period, and you feel that your life has cracked. You've had a normal life in general, but now your wife cries all day. She whines and complains. The children also whine. You're in hell. And the person thinks, why the hell do I need this? And he leaves his wife and his children. Why does he leave? Because he doesn't know that he has to pay off a debt. But if he knows this, he lives in goodness, then he prays for them and takes care of them. And what happens next? God gives him his rewards. He says, "Well done, good person, I will now give you happiness, because you took your cross and carried it where it was meant to. You didn't fall for the provocation. This means that you are a real person, and you will receive happiness from me, just as you received suffering."
Where can one find strength?
I tell you many times where to get strength. I tell you many times that strength comes from memory. If you turn on those who pray and start praying with them, then strength comes from there and defeats your fate. This is called spiritual strength. There is also moral strength. It comes from good people. Good people are also messengers of God. Not astrologers and psychologists, but those who love you kindly as a person, and when you go to them, they communicate with you kindly. These are people from God, who are good people. When you've been abandoned, when everyone has turned away from you, a good person will stay with you. This is a person from God. Go to them, communicate with them, and they will calm your heart. They will give strength to your heart. You will realize that this world makes sense to live in because such people exist. These are people from God. There's also nature. It's our mother. Just as a baby sucks milk and is filled with strength, we are all nourished by Mother Earth every second of our lives. We simply don't realize this. But if a person has realized all this, then when they are not well, when their health is bad, they go to Mother Earth. Your blood vessels are suffering now. Why? Because you don't move enough in nature. If you walk for more than an hour and a half once every 3 days, your blood vessels, everything with your circulation will normalize. That's how nature will affect you.
There's not enough strength and time. I have a husband, work, and family.
God will reward you. Strength comes from nature, good people, and God. Stop being in passion. Find time. Look, my dear friends, if you have a choice, work, family, or exercise, what should you choose? You can't get rid of work, right? A person can't survive without it. Then comes exercise, movement, and nature. Because if you choose a family, what will you give them? You have no strength. A loved one only needs one smile from you. Often just 10 minutes of smiling and kind conversation is quite enough for a loved one to live happily. But if you don't fill yourself up, if you think that I need to devote time to my family, I can't devote time to myself, it means that you have chosen incorrect thinking. As in the song, he rushed by like a burning star, perished, engulfed in flames. That means nobody needs this. Nobody needs your heroic death. Choose nature.
There are constantly some obstacles. Something or someone interferes with doing practices, listening to lectures.
My dear, you need to choose nature. No one will choose for you. But if you're affected by a difficult fate, there's nothing you can do about it. You need to make the right choice. This is how a person should live. Don't be afraid, don't break, but you need to go to nature. You don't understand this. You just say, something is hindering me. What's hindering you is lack of knowledge. You are exhausted. But you don't know what to fill yourself with. I told you what to fill yourself with. Go to nature. Wish happiness to everyone there. Walk for a long time without stopping. You will feel better. And this will immediately be transmitted to your husband and your children. You simply don't know how to overcome fate. You don't know that we are connected to each other by threads. You don't know that if you go to nature, you will be helping your husband, and if you stay next to him, you will be destroying him. When a difficult fate comes, don't stay near your loved ones. Go where you will be filled, and then it will become easier for them. I've told you this 1,000 times, but you still don't hear me.
I heard.
Oh, you heard? Good, wonderful. Tomorrow everyone should be at the retreat. I don't want to hear any excuses about what prevented you from coming. If you come there tomorrow, you'll be able to remove the thorn from your heart that's bothering you. A person can overcome their fate only by interacting with forces that are connected to God. And if one thinks they have no time to come there, it means they are in a state of passion. They are trapped by fate and slowly collapsing. Force yourself to go where victory over fate dwells. And then you'll see how things become easier and understand what the lecture was about. Your relationships will become easier. You're torturing each other, can't break free. Go where there is victory over fate, and then everything will become easier in your life. Pure goodness means breaking free from the suffocating influence of attachment. Go where overcoming fate prevails and rules, and then return to your loved ones. Everyone sit up straight. The topic is very broad, comprehensive, and complex. I've told you everything I could. I hope that you learned something new. You see, we can talk a lot, but when we leave the hall now, and I'll be communicating with you, you'll be asking me the same questions again. I will tell the same things over and over again to each of you individually, because it's very difficult to understand what's being said in relation to your own life, because the issues are so complex. Although they seem simple, they are actually very complex. Everything is very simple. I just told you how to do it, but it's very difficult to do it that way. We must try our best to do this. And even if a person doesn't understand anything at all, if you've stepped away from them and live in prayer, become strong, they have a chance to start understanding. There's a chance in this case. But if you're next to them and they humiliate, insult, and betray you, there is no chance. To learn more on the subject of health and healing of the body, please make sure to read my health guide, available for download on my YouTube channel or on my Instagram page. Thank you very much, and see you soon.